Hi, I'm Rebecca and welcome to my sewing room. Welcome if you are here for the first time, and welcome back if you're returning, and thank you for coming back. Today, I was gonna say, hey, we're using the book again, but we're really not. We're only using the blocks, but I guess we are using the book for the skirt because the skirt option that we're making today is in the book. I'm making a circle skirt. I've really been enjoying that option, and I'm also adding pockets, so that adding pockets is in here. But what is not in here is the bodice that I'm making. I have decided to try my hand at designing a shirt dress. Let me get the fabric. I have this beautiful red rayon. It has a nice little texture, a little bumpy. It's kind of has a diamond texture, but it's not lines. It's like the corners of the diamonds are raised in little dots. But I fell in love with this fabric. I don't know that I've ever worked with a rayon fabric, but I really love how it drapes, and I love the feel of it. I think it'll make a really nice circle skirt dress, but I think it'll also be a nice, comfortable dress as a t-shirt dress. So obviously a t-shirt dress has buttons. So I have a couple packs of these buttons. There, now you can see it's kind of a crisscross design over the buttons here. With the center of it is a little rhinestone, which I think will be really, really cute with this fabric. And it'll give me the look that I was really wanting. So there's a few things that I have never done with making clothes. I've never added a collar to anything, so that'll be a first. Luckily, I bought a few boxes actually, of some old patterns from a garage sale, just so that I had some patterns to work with. I wasn't really sure what was in there, and they're kind of all mixed up and kind of a mess, so I'm not positive exactly what I have, but I have pictures and I've got quite a few pattern pieces. And so for the collar, I watched some YouTube videos. I looked up actual pattern pieces. I have used my Singer sewing book, which I will be using in this video because it has a lot of helpful tips. I will also be getting out my owner's manual because I haven't done a buttonhole in years. I think the last time I did a buttonhole, my daughter was like 3, and I made her a dress that had buttons on it. So I'll be getting that out too. So I've done a lot of prep work for this dress, but I also went through my patterns that I bought at the garage sale, and I have a couple shirts here with collars. This top collar here and the collar on the red shirt here, that are quite similar to what I would like to put on my shirt dress. So I will obviously use my pattern pieces to make my facings, but I may end up using, if I have them in here, because my patterns in this is just a mess, and I haven't actually gone through to see if I have the piece. But if I have them in here, I may actually use the collar, at least the shape of a collar from one of these, so that I get that right. But I'll use the measurements of my bodice. So I have to use my blocks that already have seam allowance for cutting on the edge, that have seam allowance for like my back pieces, and no seam allowance for my front piece because I'm cutting on the center. So I have to design new bodice pieces from those blocks with we're cutting the back of the dress on the fold. So the back is just going to be one piece. I don't think I want to add a seam down the back of the shirt. I think it'll be easier and I think it'll look nicer with cut on the fold. So hopefully I can design that right. You'll see. And I have to add, what is it called? It's not a, well, I do have to add a lapel, but that ends up being with the facing and how the collar folds out the shirt from what I can tell in the videos and directions of everything that I've read and watched. So, I have to add, is it a placket that holds the buttons down the center? So I have to figure out how wide that needs to be, plus the seam allowance on that. And I have to make a nice wide facing for the inside. I also will be using inner facing on this dress, which I have not used with this book because I haven't really needed it. The facings and the fabric that I'm using or have been using for the most part has been stiff enough, but this one I'm gonna need to reinforce where the buttons are, where the buttonholes are. I will also be needing to reinforce probably, and I don't know yet, but probably the side that actually holds the buttons, just so that that doesn't rip, at least a little bit where the buttons are. And I have to have interfacing in the collar from everything I've watched and read to make sure that that holds its shape and stays folded and looks the way it's supposed to. I've also considered maybe, and I don't have all the supplies for this, so if I decide to do this down the road, I have to go to the store, but maybe making a belt to go with this because it's red and white. And I have black belts that would look cute with this, but I don't want a black belt. So maybe making a belt as well out of my red and white fabric, which would be a nice fun challenge, and I think it would make it look really cute, but we'll see. Really, it depends on how frustrated I get with this pattern and with this dress, because sometimes I'm just ready for it to be done and don't want to do any of that kind of thing. Because one of the dresses that I made, I would love to make a belt to go with it that matches, or find a white one or make a white one because it would look great with the belt. And this is going to have the same kind of waist where I don't actually have a waistband, just the bodice and the skirt are connected, and I kind of like, even if it looks good, I kind of like the idea of covering that with the belt. So we'll figure that out down the road. All right, let's go start designing our pattern. It's 2 inches, so I need 2.5 inches. think I'll leave the darts where they're at. How do I do the neck? This actually needs to come in a little bit. Also, yeah, I usually like to take it down an inch, so I'll stop right here. I need to work on this. I need to go look at the pattern and see how this is drafted. Okay, I'm going to leave this as a rounded neck, but I'm going to drop it down an inch just like I did up here so that it'll match. I like the look of having it rounded versus having a V-neck when it's finished, from what I saw in the two patterns that I have. Okay. And keep this going here. Okay, and now I also have to figure out on my placket where my buttons are going to go. And I think I'm also going to do a placket in the skirt. I think. That way I don't have to worry about where my dress, how I'm getting my dress on and off. But I don't want to do too much of a sleeve because I'm going to have a decent amount going on the bodice with it being a shirt dress. So I'm not even going to pattern a new sleeve. I had a butterfly sleeve on my purple and blue video a while back. The first one that I made with this book was a butterfly sleeve, and so here's my pattern already done for that because I keep all of my old pattern pieces, and for the most part it's pretty organized, so I know where my stuff is. So I'm going to use this pattern, this sleeve pattern, with this dress as well. So now I will be back when I figure out how I'm gonna do the skirt and whether I'm going to make a pattern or if I'm just going to add is it a placket? Whatever the heck that thing is. I might just add that a little bit because I need seam allowance anyways for my skirt, so I might just add that 2.5 inches on there. I don't know, we'll see, because I think that would then change my skirt waist measurement since it's a circle skirt, and then that adds a lot more math. And I'm not terrible with math, but I'm not the best at math and circles and stuff. We'll see. I'll figure it out and I'll be back. No, it's not time for the skirt yet, even though I said that's what I would be doing next. Duh, I figure out the color. So I did have to go and look at the patterns again that I have, read some of the directions, look at those pictures, and also use my Singer tailoring book, my Singer sewing book, and my Better Homes and Gardens sewing book. That one was not all that helpful. However, I haven't read through it yet, and it turns out there's a few cute dresses in there that I could probably pattern, and I might try. Anyways, I figured it out. I also found a pattern piece right here from one of the patterns. It is, let me grab it. It is the pattern piece from this pattern for these, but I obviously have to make my own that fits the measurements of the dress that I am making. So this pattern piece is very, very, very wrinkled. So I'm going to go ahead and get my iron started. I'm going to iron this and measure my bodice pieces and figure out how long I need it, and I'll be back and we will pattern this piece out too. Okay, so to get this right, the length of our collar, this part here, has to measure the length of our collar here. So we're gonna measure that and figure out how long that is. It does, according to the pictures, it only goes to where the lapel is at, and then the facing will do the rest of that. So we'll measure it that far in the front, and then we'll do the whole back. To measure something accurately like this, I've learned that you have to put your tape measure on the side to get the most accurate measurement because it's on a curve. And then you just do this the whole way. So that is 6 1/8 inches plus +5 1/8, so that's 11 1/4 inches that my collar needs to be. Oh wow, this one's long. 18.5 inches. So it actually needs to be 12 1/4 inches for the seam allowance. That's okay, we can do this. We'll figure it out. So 12 1/4 needs 6 1/8. Yes. How high up do I really want it to go? I don't know. How high up is this? 3 3/8. So I could do the same thing, I guess. That does not look like. Hold on, am I doing this right? I think I measured the wrong one. I think that's supposed to be, that's connected. I gotta make this longer. We'll get it right one of these days. So it's 6 1/8 inches on this edge. I think it'll be good. I think that's good. I have the center marked, so I'll use that in the edges to line up my under collar and my top collar. All right. Now I have to figure out the skirt. I'll be back. I have finally figured out how I am going to cut out my circle skirt pattern. I will be doing a full back panel, which is the first thing I'm going to cut out. So the only thing I have to do is add a 1/2 inch on the end of both sides. So actually just one side because I'm cutting it 2 layers for the seam allowance. And then I will do basically the same thing for the other, almost, for the other 2 pieces, because I'm doing 2 front pieces instead of 2 back pieces. So I will be adding 4 inches to the end of them, cutting off 2 inches from the end of one of them to make the placket, and that way it won't distort the waist measurement I have. But then on the other end, I will be adding another 1/2 inch for the seam allowance. So let's go ahead and start getting that cut out. All right, we got her all cut out. It's almost dinner time. I actually have to start making dinner. So that's it for today. I will see you tomorrow. Good morning. We're back for day 2. I'm glad I took a break before I started sewing because I would have been very, very disappointed in myself if I didn't. Overnight, while I was just thinking about this and how it was all going to fit together and how I was going to sew it and my next steps, I realized I cut it wrong. But I was able to find a video of a shirt dress bodice made from a basic bodice black. And I watched that and realized I didn't have to change too much of it, I think, from what I could tell. So I had added 2 inches to the center front for the placket. But what I really needed to do was put the buttons on the center front and then only add an inch for the placket plus the 1/2 inch for the seam allowance instead of the 2.5 inches for the full placket, because I can do the rest of the placket on the other side of the button. Obviously, that's how it's supposed to be. So you can actually see I didn't change this pattern piece at all. I just remeasured and cut, but the facings I could not do that to, which I tried. But the lapel part or the placket part ended up being too thin, too narrow, and it wouldn't have worked right. It wouldn't have held on the buttons correctly. So I needed to recut the facing. I also thought about just trying to use that one, but when I put it up next to it, the neck facing, so what's called the collar facing right here, whatever you really want to call it, was like 1/2 inch to 1 inch, depending on where it was at. It was off, so it wouldn't have been there, and so it wouldn't have looked right. So I had to recut that, which means I also obviously added some, and you can see where I taped on some paper to this. I added some, retraced it, and recut those. So now I'm right back to where I was yesterday. The next thing I have to do is cut the facing, not the facings, the inner facing for the facings and the inner facing for the collar. Let me double check that that's all. Yeah. So I have to cut one inner facing for the collar because only one of those pieces is interfaced, and then an interfacing for the back neck facing and an interfacing for the front dress facing. So I'll do that, and then I will be back to start sewing. As usual, the first thing that I have to sew on these dresses is the darts. So that's what I'm going to do first. The fabric itself, as you can see, I don't have the lines for the darts. I just have the dots where the darts are going to match up, which kind of sucks because I like having the lines to match up with my pins and make sure it's all straight. However, this fabric does not like to stay straight when I was trying to draw the lines on one of the front pieces. So my line ended up like 1/4 inch off from where it was supposed to. So I am deciding to just use the dots, and hopefully I can line them up that way. So that's what I'm going to do off camera, because I probably will end up saying some words that aren't quite so nice because I don't like doing this. So once I get the darts, which I have 6 darts, so I have 4 darts on the front, 2 on each piece, and then just 2 on the back bodice piece, which is awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and sew, and then I will be back to work on the next step, because off the top of my head I cannot remember what the next step is. I think it might be shoulder seams, but I have to think about it. So I'll be back once the darts are done. Okay, the next part of making this dress is sewing my shoulder seams together. I figured that out. That was pretty easy. So we will do that. Turn it around for my right sides. You're gonna get a funny angle for a little bit. I think now my next step is, I know I have to join the facing to the top, to the bodice. Hold on a second, I gotta get to the right page. I need to join the facing to the bodice, and at the same time, I also have to do the collar, which means I do need to stitch that and get it all clipped and turned around. But you'll see me do that here in a little bit. But I think the first thing is to, I don't know if I stitch around any up here or if I just stitch down the side. So I need to find that. Before attaching a collar, make sure that you have stay stitched the neckline of the garment. So, I guess I need to do that. Stitched, finished, and pressed the shoulder seams and darts. I already did that. Attach the facing and inner facing to the front opening, leaving the neckline edge free. Okay. Refer to faced neckline and front opening, page 134. Let me make sure I read that so I get that right. Okay. So, let's do that. Let me say, thank goodness for that book. Without it, I went and did a little quick try on, and I think it's gonna fit. I was worried after I cut it, just because I get worried after I cut stuff. So now let's go ahead and get the facing and the collar on. Obviously, we will start with the face. Collar with back facing. Use this method for a better finish and for fabrics that will require dry cleaning. I can probably hand wash this or machine wash this, but it's fine. I already have it cut. Okay. Let me go ahead and we need to put our collar together, which is actually what I thought my next step was going to be. Here's my collar. Let's get it pinned and then sewn around every edge except this one. After joining the front and back facings at the shoulder seams, when do I do that? Let's see. I think I'll just pin them. Pin my shoulder seams. It does say to leave the shoulder or the top edges free, so we will keep this. Okay, hold on. Okay, so I actually should also sew this part. Step. Alright, I need to, it says to blend the seams and press. I hate this part because I'm always afraid I'm going to screw it up and cut the wrong thing. Alright, look at these nice little seams. Ooh, so nice and flat. Alright, next step. Pin and baste the under collar and the inner facing to the neckline, shoulder line, and center lines. Stitch in a continuous line. Working with this part here. I'm going to turn this back around a little bit, just so it lays flat for me. Okay. Pin and baste under collar and inner facing. It's on the outside. Yeah. Let's flip that over. Flip that off. Okay, so this one's the under collar because it's got the inner facing on it. Under collar and inner facing to the neckline. My markings are literally edge to edge because I, for whatever reason, did not mark the middle. This is not the easiest thing to do. Okay, now that we're all pinned, if you can see that, hard to see up there, we go ahead and stitch that on. Making sure to not get this other collar piece in there or any other piece that's not supposed to be in there. And making sure that it stays laid flat. So that's a lot of making sure of things. Got that part of the collar on. Turn the facing over the right side of the garment and pin it to the neckline from the front edge to the collar edge. Pin and base the neckline facing to the top collar, matching markings and lines. right side of the garment, which I think is the collar, correct? And pin it to the neckline from the front edge. Why would I pin it like that? I would pin it in here. To me, this only makes sense if this goes, let's do this right, hold this correctly. Okay, so I figured out a way to do it. I don't think it's the way to do it, but that's okay. You can't really tell, but I do have my shoulder seams right here, and I've got those pinned in place to hold the facing down and where it's supposed to be. And then I went ahead and tucked the facing into this layer of the collar, and then I folded the bottom edge of the collar and pinned that in place. So I'm going to sew a straight line from shoulder seam to shoulder seam. And hopefully it'll look good on the outside, and then we'll continue to move on. It says, I'll end up tacking these, I'm sure. I don't need the pins in there anymore since the facing's in. I'm puckered. Oh well. It's my first ever collar. And I don't actually have directions. So also says to go ahead and roll it, shape it the way that it's going to go. So that's kind of done like that. And what's my next step? What do I need to do? Oh, I was going to, that's right, because I did the collar. I'm going to top stitch my edges. that look pretty nice. You can hardly see it. It is a nicer edge there. And it helps it stand up, gives it a little bit more structure. So let's do that with this other side. Okay. Now, my next thing I think is going to be the side seams. Pulling my side seams together. So we'll go ahead and get that pinned. Now I'm at a good point to take a break. I have to press the side seams and I'm going to try this on to see how it fits, and I will be back. Okay, so the fit is like perfect. The collar is goofy because it is too short. I don't know what I was thinking putting it in at the shoulder seams. So unfortunately I do have to recut a new collar, sew that, and I need to take this out a little bit because my collar should actually go like almost all the way down here. I want 2 inches where I don't have a collar. That's probably about it. So I need to add quite a bit on to my collar. Should have really realized that, but did not think, and I'm not really good with shapes in my head until I get them out. So I will be working on undoing that and reattaching my new collar, and then I will be back once I'm finished and back to this point with the new collar on. Alright, I am back to where we were yesterday. I got the new collar on. It actually comes down where it's supposed to be, but I past my shoulders. But I decided not to top stitch it because I'm afraid I'm going to screw it up if I do, and I just don't want to screw it up. So the next step on this is to take care of the sleeves. So since these are butterfly sleeves, I have to, as usual, sew the underarm seams together, which we will do real quick. Since it's a butterfly sleeve, I'm also going to roll up the underside of the hem and press and sew that together, and I'll be back. So the butterfly sleeves with this fabric is just too thin. I can't get the hem right, it messes up, so I'm going to have to do a regular cap sleeve. But I'm going to go ahead now and move on to the skirt, and we will do the sleeves before, we might even do the sleeves after I do the buttonholes and buttons, but we'll see. Depends on how far I get and what I want to do next. So let's go ahead and get our skirt pieces. This is my back piece, and I have 2 front panels, so I'm going to put each panel on. Wow, that did not cut even. I'm going to put each panel on, and then we will figure out the placket situation. So I'm actually not going to record that. So let me show you real quick and tell you real quick what I'm going to do once I get these pieces opened up. Cut even further. this goes to the side here. So we'll pin and stitch these side seams, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I got the skirt panels put together, and I also gathered the waistband because I don't think this is going to go in perfectly, and I want to be able to have a little bit of it looked intentional if there's ripples. So now we are going to pin the skirt to the bodice. I'm going to match up my side seams, and I'm going to try to match up where the edge of the shirt placket will be at the edge of the skirt placket as well. So let's go ahead and do that. One side seam. Other side seam. And since I have the backs now pinned together at the side seams, I'm going to go ahead and stretch the skirt. Wow, I gathered a whole heck of a lot, and turns out I need like almost none of that. So, undo that. I can remove all of this gather. That was just a regular machine gather, and I don't have a gathering foot. Okay, so now let's do this again. And now we'll see how close we are. Oh yeah, that's so much closer. I thought it would end up being a little bit. I'd have to add some ease in a little bit, but I wasn't really sure. But that's okay. I'm not too worried. I can't believe the skirt's that much smaller than the bodice, actually. Not really that much smaller, it just looks like it. Oh, I just broke my gathering stitches. But that's okay because I need to make sure this has a placket. Okay, we're all pinned. Turns out I took out every last gathering stitch. None of it's gathered, so hopefully it all looks good once I get it stitched together. So let's go ahead and do that. So it looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and try it on real quick and see how that looks. Okay, so as we saw, I have the bodice and the skirt all put together. I went ahead and stitched this front side, like top stitched it down so it would stay down a little bit on the plackets. And then I laid it out on the table. I didn't record this because I wasn't really sure how I was doing it. So I laid it out on the table and I measured for my buttons. I measured 4 inches down from the top of the bodice piece, so like up here for my first button. I think that'll give it a nice little fold for the collar. And then for now, I'm just adding 5 buttons, and I think I'm going to sew the bottom of the skirt front together. A little bit less work and a few less buttonholes. So we're gonna go ahead and do these buttonholes. It's been a long time since I've done a buttonhole, but I did just practice to remind myself, and it's not that hard. But I need to double check the size of my button here so I know how long to make my buttonhole. My button is just over 1/2 inch. I can't remember if I need it just bigger or just slightly bigger. Let's find out. This book has really come in handy, that's for sure. My clothes would continue to look like crap if I didn't have it. Okay, I do have, the first thing it talks about is positioning your buttonholes. So I do have it so that my buttonhole is marked exactly where the center of my button should be on the other side. So now I just have to figure out how far below and how far above that spot. I'm doing vertical buttons, but that won't matter because that's how my machine works. Spaces between. I did measure 3 inches between my buttons. And I got that distance because I used like 4 of my daughter's button-down shirts, and all the buttons were between 3 and 4 inches apart, and I thought that was just too far, so I just went with 3. I originally did like 2 7/8, but then that made them really tight together, and I just had to do more, and I didn't want to, so. Length of buttonhole. Since the length of the buttonhole depends on the button, select buttons, obviously. Determine the length, measure the diameter plus the thickness. To test the length, cut a slash and double thickness swatch. If the button slips through, it's correct. Always make a test buttonhole. Long enough so the button slips through easily, yet snug enough. Okay. So I really have to look at my button itself. It's got a little nub on the bottom, so it lifts it up here. Here we go. That's where I stitched it into. It's really not all that thick, so I think I'll do just a little bit, just a touch longer than the button. So let's go ahead. Hold on. Got it marked a little bit with Taylor's chalk, but I can barely see it, so you won't be able to. So I'm going to do that for all of my buttons, but I will show you how to do one. So you can't see much up there, but a lot of the machines are different. Mine's a little bit different because mine will start with, let me find where my bottom of that flower. Mine starts in reverse, and then I do the top of the tack, and then I come back and do the bottom of the tack. That's, now I don't think all machines are like that, but that's how mine is. So get myself in the right one, and let's go. figure out how far down I need to go before I, oops, not down, how far up I need to go. There we go. We'll just do this. Okay, now I'm at the top. I switched to do my top bar. I'm going to go 2, 3, about 4 stitches across there. And now I'm switching to do my other side. And we do that the same length that we did the first one. And you can't really see much, but that's okay. A couple more stitches, one more. And then I go in to do the bottom bar. And 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches there. And that is my first buttonhole. So now I have 5 more to do. I'm going to do them the exact same way. And I will be back when, probably once I have all my buttonholes done and my buttons sewed on. Hello from the final day of this video. Today actually is just going to be the finishing touches video because here's the thing. I, as you saw, was originally going to have butterfly sleeves, but doing the rolled hem is so ridiculously tough with this fabric. It does not want to stay where I put it, and it does not like to press well. So I decided to not do the butterfly sleeves because of that. But when I tried it on the way it is, hanging up right there behind me after I've got my top 5 buttons put on, I put it on and realized I really like this sleeveless look. But I wasn't sure because I don't always love having sleeveless dresses or shirts. I don't love showing my upper arms all the time. But I thought it's a nice thin fabric. It's a great fabric for summer, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to have this with no sleeves. And I have tons of sweaters, black, white, cream. I think I even have a red, actually, that will go perfectly with this dress on the chillier days because I'm probably not going to wear it much in the winter anyways because it is so thin. So on like the chilly fall days when I am still wearing it, I can always throw on a sweater. So for now, unless I decide in the future that I don't like it, I'm just going to, I think I'm going to cut out a facing for the armhole. I thought about doing bias, and I do have just a plain red cotton bias, but I don't know that I'm going to love that look. And because this fabric's so thin already and doesn't like to be pressed, it's going to be a whole heck of a lot to make my own bias binding out of this fabric. So I don't know yet how I'm going to finish the sleeves, but you'll find out once I decide at the end. My first step, the majority of this really, because it's just finishing, isn't actually going to be recorded. So you'll get to find out what I do when I'm done. My first step for this actually though is sewing together. I have to interface above that top button on the skirt, not interface, yeah, interface the lapel parts because I forgot to interface that part, and as you might be able to see, it kind of sags there at the waistband because the waistband's heavy and pulls apart down, so I don't have the structure in there for interfacing, so I'm gonna have to piece that around the button to give that a little bit of structure and a little bit further past that. But then I don't need all of the dress open, obviously, to get it on and off. So I'm going to stitch the front lapel of the skirt closed, and then I'm going to apply probably 3 more buttons on there, just as decorative buttons to make it look like the whole thing opens. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to either do the facing or the binding for the sleeves, and then the final thing I have to do is hem it. It is a circle skirt and it's only been hanging overnight. So unfortunately, I know this skirt has not dropped as long as it's going to, because it's a circle skirt and this fabric is kind of stretchy on the bias. Anyways, that's okay. I'm going to hem it today because I'm actually going to wear this dress to my cousin's wedding this afternoon. And over time, as the skirt stretches and it gets uneven, I'll just go ahead and take out the old hem and re-hem it to make it straight again. So I'm not too worried about that. So I guess you will see me at the final product. Unless I have something else to add, because it seems in this video, I have come back and said, no, I changed my mind. No, I'm doing this. No, I did this. Oh, I screwed this up. Let's redo this. So we'll find out. All right. So as you can see, I had some issues in patterning and constructing and final touches. As the video earlier stated in a caption, I did not wear the dress to my cousin's wedding that day because that hem was really messed up. So after all of the struggles I had with this dress and the dress from that I did before, which I posted 2 weeks ago, I needed to take a break. So I let the dress hang for 2 weeks. And then I took out the hem. I recut it. It is still a little janky, but I got to the point where I went, I don't care. As I was editing the video, I realized each time I slid the fabric to cut the skirt, it moved it. So that messed up my hem from the start. So that was kind of already gonna get messed up. And I have a really hard time like cutting straight lines and cutting perfect curves, as probably most people do. And this fabric moved like crazy. It was a nice learning experience. I will continue to practice on a little bit easier fabric before I pick this up again, but maybe by next not fall, it's fall now, next spring or summer, I will be able to pick it up and make something really good. So I will be trying this pattern again. I did enjoy it. I learned so much. And I do really like the style because I had to trim the skirt. It was already short. The skirt was already short when I originally cut it. And so now it's like really, really short. So I do have to wear this at the end of the summer, beginning of fall before it gets too cold. But when I can cover my legs with leggings or tights. So unfortunately this dress won't be worn too much, but it will get worn. So to conclude what I did for the armholes, I made facings for those. I lined them, or I didn't line them. I interfaced them, and then I stitched and top stitched them on. And then what else did I do? That might be the only other thing that I did not conclude at the end of my last, when I finished this dress like over a month ago. It really was almost a month ago I finished this. Okay, so thank you for watching. Thank you for coming back if you were here before. And please come back for more. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more of this. And there is a notification bell if you want to get notifications when I post videos. So thank you for watching.